Have you ever wanted to speed through missions while playing as the Crusader instead of the Psyker? Or maybe you are looking for a build that lets you consistently and quickly farm high level missions without worrying about dying? Then you have come to the right place. Today I'm sharing my beginner Crusader build that you can use as soon as you hit the endgame. I've put together a budget friendly setup with only relic items, so you don't need to grind forever hoping for the right architect or morality items to drop, making it perfect for new players and for those who are making a seasonal character. So let's get started with the attributes. We put 25 in warfare for the 50% damage boost against elite and boss enemies. Toughness isn't too important since we have plenty of other defenses. And in virtue you should be at 20 to get the additional 35% damage boost. For perks, start with the blessing, which caps the maximum damage you can take at 30% per hit, making it one of the strongest defensive abilities in the game. Next we go with Augmented Body 2 for the big boost to suppression. Keeping your suppression in the green helps you to avoid all the debuffs enemies might throw at you. Lastly, I chose Diversive Tactics. This perk allows you to stack more debuffs on the target by making you apply all the vulnerabilities in the game, which increases the damage with enchants like this one. It also helps you to maintain maximum stacks of heat and physical vulnerability by using fast ticking damaging effects like the heat aura or the gravity implosion, leading to a much higher and more consistent damage output. For stats, I would look out for good defenses, a high crit chance, a high vulnerability effectiveness, since this is a huge damage multiplier, and lastly we increase our loot quality and quantity to make this a true farming character. Let's now go over our items. On the neural implant, prioritize getting the enrich token on crit enchant as soon as possible. For those who don't know, each token grants you an 8% increase in damage. For the rest of the enchants, look out for all resist and shock and slow on vulnerabilities, since you will be applying them all the time. For the eye implant, go with the damage per enrich token enchant. Focus here on the crit stats first, as you will rely heavily on crits to maintain your enrich tokens. For the main implant, go with the damage per enrich token again. Prioritize here attributes and the defensive stats first. This is also where you will see the first example of incorporating loot quality and quantity. You can actually roll these two stats as secondary rolls on every item. However, I didn't do this on every item because I wanted to balance damage output with the loot increase. If you focus entirely on loot and chance for every item, your damage potential will drop significantly, leading to slower clear times and limiting your ability to tackle higher level missions. For sockets, definitely boost vulnerability effectiveness for a significant damage increase. And if you have the shards from the Season of Empyrean Echoes, you can further improve loot quality. If not, go with single target or AoE shards, since we deal both types of damage. Or you could also use crit strength to break through a threshold. On the Purity Seal, we are using the Fear aura in enraged state. For those of you who don't know, Fear reduces the enemy's suppression and their damage. Then roll for the defensive stats initially, and later focus on getting the loot bonuses and the cooldown reduction. In the belt slot, we are using the teleporter to speed up farming. I chose the enchant that gives you a damage boost upon teleportation. The other key stats to look out for are the suppression gain and the inoculator duration. And for the sockets we go with the same as before. Our armor of choice is of course the assault armor for the additional movement ability. The relic enchant doesn't really matter here, you can go with whatever you want, and otherwise go with full defensive enchants, except for the crit chance. For sockets we go with the ethereal psalm doctrine. With this your character becomes nearly unkillable and you will constantly recharge your inoculator. And in the 6th socket, we again put the vulnerability effectiveness. Our inoculator provides a substantial amount of HP regeneration, because we consistently apply 30 stacks of vulnerabilities. The most crucial enchants here are the secondary ones. The charge drop helps us to replenish our teleporter, and the cooldown reset is vital to keep our inoculator ready when needed, because our cooldown reduction would be otherwise really high if we use 2 or 3 Psychons and a Blood Balm. Our first weapon is the Power Hammer, because it can roll the enchant that makes stunned enemies explode on kill, which significantly boosts our AoE clear speeds. And when we combine it with this Psalm Doctrine, we also never need to worry about applying those stuns. The key enchants to focus on here are the crit chance, the shield and the life drain. The enchant on our first Signum will be the one that increases our damage in enraged state. And for the second Signum, I'm using the enchant that increases our damage per enraged token. To be honest, this enchant is amazing. The only problem is that it reduces an additional enraged token per hit, which can lead to you running out of tokens really quickly. So if you find that you cannot keep up your enraged tokens, I would even run with 2 of those enchants, because then at least you can maintain the damage boost from the tokens themselves and the boost you get from your eye and main implant. For the secondary weapon, I highly recommend the Inferno pistol. The Melter Blast creates a large AoE effect and applies burns, which count as another debuff. Plus this weapon can roll with the enchant that grants us a damage bonus per debuff, which is really strong. To be honest, I would love to use a Storm Shield for the shield charge to have an additional movement ability, but unfortunately you cannot get a damage per debuff enchant on it. One thing to note is that I highly recommend getting suppression per hit as a primary enchant on at least one weapon, since we need all the suppression gain we can get on higher difficulties. For the Psalm Doctrine, we are of course using the Heat Aura, which is perfect for applying debuffs like vulnerabilities and stuns, and it also helps us to keep our enraged tokens up. For our second loadout, I highly suggest the Grav Gun. The Gravity Implosion gives you an extra edge in damage and speeds up the process of applying debuffs even further. And if you get the Inoculator Charge enchant on it, you can easily use this gun to kill regular or horde enemies and keep your charges up that way. For Signums, go again with the options like the damage per enriched token. As you can see, we are using a full relic set, which is super easy to craft and reroll. This build can comfortably handle plus 14 missions. But once you go above that, you will start to notice a drop in single target damage. So if you plan on taking on higher level missions, consider equipping a power sword at the start of the mission, or keep it in your inventory to swap it out when facing elite and boss enemies. You might ask, why choose the power sword? That's because of the Blade Flurry skill. It's a combo attack that makes every 5th hit deal plus 500% damage, which is perfect for taking down bosses. And if you also socket the Psalm Doctrine, you will boost that damage even further. With this, you have now got a budget build that can handle 118 missions. But let's take it even further. Here are some of the things you can upgrade to maximize the build's potential. Swap out your main implant for this Ancient Relic one. The increased enriched tokens give you a solid damage boost. If you are a Radical Crusader, use this armor enchant, and if you're Puritan, then use that one. With these you can drop the Ethereal Sun Doctrine and socket a damage based one like this instead. If you are struggling with healing, find the teleporter with this enchant, which will give you a massive boost. Replace one of your Signums with one that applies general vulnerabilities as soon as possible. This will give you another huge damage boost. If you want to make this build viable for speed farming 118 or higher missions with ease, get a belt item with the Judgment enchant, from the Season of Judgment of course. It will melt enemies left and right and is a huge boost for single target damage. With this you will also deal enough damage to easily swap out your secondary weapon and use a Storm Shield instead. Now you are truly ready to destroy anything that comes your way, with high efficiency and speed. Let's now go over our passives. In the melee tree, we get another way to apply vulnerabilities, and overall just different ways to increase our damage output and our crit chance. The AoE tree is maxed out, for the various benefits to our AoE skills, like damage increase for every enemy hit, suppression gain, and most importantly, the huge cooldown reduction we get from this one. In the physical tree, we again get various benefits to our physical damage, another way to apply physical vulnerabilities, and another debuff that increases our damage up to 50%. Besides the increased crit chance and crit strength, we also get constant class resource gain, health on crits, a suppression damage bonus, and another 100% damage increase from the crit tree. In the debuff tree, we increase the efficiency of our debuffs, getting suppression gain when we stun or knock down enemies, reduce the damage of those enemies, make them deal less damage with each vulnerability applied, and get another damage increase for every debuff effect applied. We put 6 points in the movement tree for the various cooldown benefits, 4 points in the health tree to have another way to reset our inoculator cooldown. And lastly, in the defense tree, we get various resistance benefits, a second chance, increased energy shield efficiency, and an increase in our deflect value. Once you feel confident in your defenses, you can also try to remove your points from the defense tree and put them in the single target one for an even higher damage output. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you will have a blast with this one. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.